Today's video feels a little bit more personal, more intimate and up close to my experiences lately as a new mom. I wanted to make this video almost as sort of like a therapeutic exercise for myself to kind of think through what advice would I give my past self, because that same advice might be relevant to me in the future. And somehow saying it out loud, recording it, and listening back to it might be helpful or kind of emotionally meaningful to me in some way. I've noticed sometimes just saying things out loud is super helpful. Maybe why I have a YouTube channel. I realize if this helps anybody else who is going through similar things or having similar experiences, I want to be that help. Now, I want to make it clear I'm framing this video as me giving advice to my past self, like what I would tell myself before I had a baby if I could. And I'm framing it that way because some of this advice will not apply to you or to other people. Some of this will be very personal to me. Some of this people may take or leave or disagree with. I want to emphasize everybody is allowed to parent the way they think is important and valuable. And one thing I've learned in general is talking like your experience is similar to everyone else's experience is actually a very naive thing to do, and honestly kind of like a privileged lack of awareness thing to do. Other people will have very different emotional, logistical experiences to life than I will, and I can acknowledge that. So I'm talking to my past self, recognizing that this may not apply to some people. So that's why I'm framing it that way, and I want to make that clear. You're allowed to be the type of parent or caregiver that you want to be. I also want to acknowledge where I'm coming from with this. I am still a new mom, I have had my child for around 15 months now. I'm still learning. I'm still in it. Part of why I think this video could be helpful personally for me. So these are the things I am telling my past self, Aylin, as a new mom. Okay, Aylin, here we go. The first one, Aylin, is don't worry so much. Now, I know that's easier said than done. I know you're gonna worry, but I want you to at least have that extra comfort that it's gonna be okay. Especially when you have that truly newborn. Don't feel like you have to do everything all the time. The baby was just in the womb. That child did not have much stimulation at all, didn't have much happening. This new baby doesn't need constant stimulation and things happening. You don't have to be constantly showing the baby the black and white cards that everyone says you need to buy. All you need to worry about is feeding the baby, changing the diapers and the outfits, and holding the baby. Those are really the core things, along with, going to pediatrician appointments and making sure the baby is alive and okay. Beyond that, everything else is gravy. Everything else is awesome, but don't put so much pressure on yourself. That baby can barely see inches away from her face. She can barely absorb the world. Everything is murky and she's just beginning to sense things around her. Don't worry. She will gradually grow and experience the world, and you don't need to fit it all in right now. A second thing that you should know, Aylin, is that you are going to start to constantly question yourself. And probably nothing I say will really stop that. But I also get that sometimes questioning yourself helps motivate you to research things and to get better. So it's not all bad. But just know that over time, that constant feeling of am I doing this wrong? Am I doing this wrong? It will actually get better. I've gradually built a set of resources and people to ask questions to, maybe books or authors that I really trust that can help me. You will build that kind of knowledge base of what you trust, what works for you, what feels right for you, and that will help over time. You have to remember, the research on imposter syndrome, that anytime people take on a new role or task, quite often they experience a new bout of imposter syndrome. No matter how experienced or knowledgeable you are, when you take on a new task, you're going to feel like, I'm out of my depths. What am I doing? Am I a total fraud? Am I doing this wrong? That's a sign that you care and that you're trying. And yeah, keep doing research, keep asking questions, Ask questions to your doctor, talk it through with people you trust, and look things up. But just know that it's partially imposter syndrome. Just because you feel emotionally like, oh, am I doing this wrong? It does not mean that you're doing it wrong. And there are plenty of different ways to parent. And even if you do something slightly wrong or you don't do something in the best possible way, you have a lot of time to fix those mistakes. Like there may be some minor things that I did that maybe I do a little differently. But the thing is that I self-corrected and we're in a great place now. You know what I mean? Like no one little tiny decision, at least thus far that you've made, has like totally turned into a horrible situation. Just focus on keeping that child alive and showing that child some love. That relates to my third one, Aylin, which is that even if she, the baby, is not doing something quite right developmentally right away, or is like a little behind on something, it doesn't mean she won't do it later. I cannot tell you how many hours of sleep I lost over the fact that I was like, will she ever walk? And I had so much fear around that because it took her just like a little bit longer, not that much longer, but of course I freaked out about it. But now she's walking and doing great. I realize that might not be the case for everybody all the time, but quite often there's a system in place, the medical system, to help you and to inform you, and you can use resources that you trust and just keep getting better at what you're doing as a mom. It's kind of like the advice I've heard about potty training. I mean, I've heard so many different pieces of advice, but one piece of advice I got is there is so much pressure to potty train as soon as possible. But it's also kind of like it's not the end of the world if you waited a little bit longer and then the kid is faster at learning it and more proficient kind of at doing it correctly. It's like a little bit easier maybe later. And I'm not saying that's the way to do it either. I haven't done potty training yet. Like, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, you can do things right away. That's awesome. But also sometimes if you wait a little bit to push a child in a direction, you can also do it a little bit later and it might actually be a little bit easier, and that's okay. My point is there's no one right way to do things, Aylin, and like you're just doing your best and that's great. Okay, a fourth one, and this one is a little bit more controversial. And this one was an emotional thing for you. But I want to talk about breastfeeding for a second because, Aylin, you know that you've done a lot of research on breastfeeding. And before having a baby, you were like, you know what? I think I want to try breastfeeding because it seems like there are some potential benefits of it, but I don't want to put pressure on it. If it's difficult or you're having a really hard time with it, or you just really, really struggle with it for whatever reason or don't like it, you do not have to breastfeed. You told yourself that before you had the baby. Your OB had that conversation with you where she was like, listen, Aylin, you have MS. It might be better for your sleep if you don't breastfeed, and that could actually impact your MS. So you might want to consider not putting that pressure on yourself, which, by the way, thanks to that OB for saying that, because that's what I needed to hear at that point. And she told me that before I even had the baby. I was just pregnant. And so I went into motherhood thinking I'm going to try to breastfeed because I've heard there are these benefits, but I also don't want to put too much pressure on myself. But what did I do? I put pressure on myself. I worked my butt off to make breastfeeding work for me. The thing was that I had a lot of complications when I gave birth, a lot of medical things that were really intense that I don't need to get into here. I'll link a video below where I tell a lot of that story. I was dealing with healing from a very intense medical event. I was like not in a good place, and so I had trouble producing milk, and I mean I was producing some, but it wasn't enough, and so I would end up having to do triple feeds where every time you're supposed to feed, which typically is, you know, around every 2.5 hours or something, I would need to try to feed the baby with breastfeeding, then I would need to feed the baby with formula, and then I would need to pump to try to increase production. All the while, my baby was also struggling to get enough nutrition and was underweight. So I was like dealing with this where it was basically like every other hour I was spending like 45 minutes or more doing breastfeeding stuff. Obviously, it wasn't literally every other hour, like let's be real, but it was all this time, all this effort at a time when I was like getting such little sleep, feeling really overwhelmed. And I tried like that for 5 weeks. I tried to breastfeed, and I did partially. breastfeed, but it was just never working. It was never enough. And I felt so guilty, I think, because when I worked with the lactation consultant, no one ever said, like, just remember, if this is ever getting to be too much, like, you don't have to do it. You can decide to quit. Like, all the messaging I got from the lactation consultant and the people at the hospital was kind of this vibe of like, you can do it, just keep trying, you're doing great. When really I felt like I wasn't doing great. Like, she was basically telling me this is normal, when honestly I don't think it was normal. Now maybe a lot of other people deal with these challenges. I'm not saying that I was alone in this or something, but I'm just saying I don't think this was like typical, like, okay, like, easy breezy. You know what I mean? Like, it was really, really hard, and it was really taking a toll, honestly, on my mood and my just overall health, and that I really also needed to be focusing on healing. But just know, Aylin, that once you decide to quit breastfeeding and just use formula, everything will feel so much better. For you, that was the right decision at that time, given everything else you were dealing with. If you actually look at the numbers and the research and look at the quality of studies, you will find that the benefits of breastfeeding are far overestimated culturally. And just to back this up, this book, Crib Sheet by Emily Oster, she is actually an economist who's really good at understanding research and has looked through a ton of scientific research and tried to evaluate the quality of studies as well, and to distill all the chaos that is the research on this topic into something that you can actually understand. And what she basically says in her chapter on breastfeeding is that there are some short-term benefits to the baby, including things like fewer allergic rashes, fewer ear infections, maybe, she says, fewer gastrointestinal disorders, but these are all in the short term. So basically, I think while you're breastfeeding, those benefits of breastfeeding, according to the way she looked at the research, do not last in the long term. So it's not like it protects you against these kind of like more minor everyday illnesses forever. It's just in the short term. So there are some benefits in the short term, but they essentially go away, or they don't benefit the child in the long term. And the reality is your daughter hasn't really had these problems at all, actually. She's doing great. She's thriving. The formula worked great, and it really allowed me, I think, to be a better mom because I could get a little better sleep. I could be more present and more there for my daughter in the moment. There are some benefits for the mom, I'll acknowledge. She says there is a slightly lower risk of breast cancer for the mom if you breastfeed. But also remember, Aylin, that your risk of breast cancer also decreases by having been pregnant. That helps decrease, the risk of breast cancer, which is a huge plus. And even Emily Oster says the bottom line is, basically, I'm summarizing her bottom line points. There are some health benefits to breastfeeding very early on, but the evidence overall supporting those benefits is more limited than is commonly stated. And then also, I want to make this clear. I'm going to quote this directly from her book. The data does not provide strong evidence for long-term health or cognitive benefits of breastfeeding for your child. I even, independent of Emily Oster, have gone through a lot of studies on this because of my worry about it, and honestly, I found that to be the case. So I'm just restating this all. You have looked at this. If you're pregnant, you've probably already read this book and everything, but just know that the benefits are not as miraculous as people tend to portray them as. And I'm not trying to disparage breastfeeding. I think it can be great for people, but it just really was hard for you, and it's okay. You can take the leap to quit breastfeeding. It will be like the best decision you made for your motherhood journey. Another more specific one, the fifth one I want to talk about, is feeding and baby-led weaning versus purees. You might not even know much about this yet if you're pregnant past Aylin or something. But just know there's a lot of noise out there about it. A lot of people are really staunchly in the camp of you need to do baby-led weaning and any purees are bad. Listen, just do what works for you. You're gonna end up doing a combo and kind of doing some purees, but also introducing your baby to foods and letting them explore those foods and trying to give them a diversity of exposure. And you know what? It'll work out. Eventually, your daughter will eat. And I'm sure in the future I'll have different picky eating phases that will deal with, and there's a lot I still have to learn. But as of right now, based on where I'm at, like, just do what works in the moment. Like, I, as an adult, I think I was, brought up on purees when I was a baby. And look, I will try any food practically at least once. It's not like I'm a picky eater as an adult. I'm an adventurous eater. I like a variety of foods, and I think overall I have like a good relationship with food. So you know what? It's okay if you don't go exactly with like what all your friends are saying is recommended. And I will say I'm grateful to those friends. Like, I have 1 or 2 friends that have sent me information on baby-led weaning that has been super helpful. So I'm not trying to say anything negative about them. They're awesome. But just don't let you feel bad about not being perfect about it, because you'll find a path that works for you. You know what I mean? You got this. The 6th one is just a quick tip, and maybe this is more specific to my daughter, but let me tell you the 2 things my daughter loves, just so you know. She loves to be read to. Read her those books, or even point to pictures in the book. Just help her learn to turn the page. She's so happy when she does that. She loves it, can't get enough. And it's an easy thing to do where you feel like you're connecting with her, you're entertaining her, and she's growing and learning. Second thing is sing to her. Engage with music. She loves music. That always calms her down. If you're ever not sure what to do, sing to her. A 7th one, Aylin, is don't feel guilty if you don't feel perfectly or miraculously, beautifully bonded with her right away. Everybody is going to feel a relationship with their child differently when they first give birth. For you, you again had a very dramatic birth where you were even put under general anesthesia. You had to do this last minute C-section, and you were even groggy and still affected by the anesthesia when you first met your daughter. And like, I think that all impacted how you bonded and kind of related to your daughter. And then you were in the hospital and like couldn't move out of pain for multiple weeks. So it's okay if you don't have this hyper emotional, perfect, you're happy beyond anything you've ever experienced before moment. If you don't have that, it's okay. And you will grow your own deep and meaningful relationship with your daughter. It's already growing, and I know it'll continue to grow. I feel like I am bonding more and more as I learn more about her and I get to know her more. And even now, like, she can only say a few words, so I know I have so much more to learn about her likes and dislikes and her interests as she grows older, and I'm excited for that. But just don't feel like something is wrong with you or that you're a bad mom if you don't have like the dramatic fount of love moment that people describe. Like, you will relate to your baby in a deep and meaningful way that is unique to you, and you don't have to look to your side at anybody else. A lot of people who get the attention are those who are dramatic and say these dramatic things about, I instantly, when I saw my baby, I had these instincts that kicked in and I knew exactly what to do, and I just felt like nothing else mattered. Like, that doesn't have to be you. Maybe you're not sure about your instincts. Maybe you're someone who has to do more of the research and like think through things and logic through things, and maybe you're someone who like grows with your emotions over the long term. Maybe instead it's just kind of like this gradual learning, and you don't have to compare yourself to other people's experiences or journeys. The 8th one and the last one I want to say is, girl, it gets better. Those first few months, even those first 6 months, those first 9 months, that first year was hard. You're constantly learning. The baby is constantly changing and constantly needs new things. Even just like getting out of the house feels like this impossible task. Like, will we ever go anywhere ever again? Will you be able to like function and ever do anything? Like, literally all your time is like taken up by this baby, and like sometimes it's beautiful and joyful, but other times it's hard and unhappy and like not fun, and you're sleep deprived and you're just overwhelmed. And you feel like, oh my gosh, is this the rest of my life? Just no, it's not. Things do get better. And I really think that they started to get better around that year mark, 12-month mark. Like, especially as she started to walk, it just became better for you. And what's funny is a lot of people before she was walking would tell me like, oh, you watch out, you just wait till she walks. It'll be a handful. It'll be overwhelming. You won't be able to handle it. It's so overwhelming once the baby can walk. And listen, maybe for some people that's the case, but for me, it's been better. Now, I might be at a sweet spot. It'll probably get harder again in some ways that I don't even think about right now. For me right now, I'm at a better place where, for me, with my MS, being able to set down my child in public on her feet rather than having to carry her in like a carrier with all this extra equipment and heaviness and not being able to take a break, her being able to stand and to walk a little bit on her own has made it so much easier for me physically with my MS, which comes up for me as like dizziness and weakness and fatigue. Being able to set her down for a minute when I'm feeling super dizzy is such a gift. That will be a huge plus. Another thing is you will just learn her preferences and what works for her better, how to make it easier to clean up after she eats, or like little hacks that work for you just through experience. And no book is going to tell you that. I know you're reading all the books, you're taking numerous classes, you're doing everything you can to prepare for this baby. But just know once you're on the job and you've had more and more months under your belt, you will figure out a path that works for you. And over time, it will get better. And it also doesn't hurt that you get a ton of amazing help and support from family. That is huge, and that will make a huge difference as well. Anyway, this was a little bit of a different video, but I'm doing this as sort of like a therapeutic exercise for me. Maybe I can watch this and almost learn from it even now. And I feel like it's even empowering to be comforting my past self and saying, hey, listen, you're growing in confidence. That like helps me saying that, even though it's almost a little cringy to say, especially if I do put this online for people to see. And also, if you're somebody who's in the thick of it, who's feeling overwhelmed, or maybe you're pregnant and looking toward having a baby and you're like, what to expect? Just know you will figure it out over time. Anyway, let me know if you have any pieces of advice you would tell your past self if you have a kid, or even if you're going through an infertility journey or something, because I went through that too. I did IVF, and I think that also impacted all my emotions around having a baby. Like I think some of the emotions around pregnancy and even giving birth were like a little bit stunted or numbed. Not that I didn't feel emotions, but just I was like self-protecting, like if something goes wrong, I don't want to get too happy about this. So that also is a layer in this, and I want to acknowledge like not everyone is even able to have a child and everybody has a different path. I don't know, I'd love to hear any of your advice you would give your past self, even whether or not you have a kid. Anyway, thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.